I don't think you need to be a particularly big Transformers fan to recognize the inherent coolness of a robot dinosaur. And add in the ability for that robot dinosaur to transform into a really cool robot. Brother, you've got a recipe for a fan-favorite Dinobot on your hand. Studio Series started as a chance for Hasbro to get a second shot at some of those live-action movie characters, and get some of those profitable designs back on the shelves. I think this was a good idea for a number of reasons. Mostly because engineering has come a long way since the first movie, and oftentimes they only had concept art to go off of, so the characters didn't end up looking much like the toys. Now granted, they did get a bit of that anyway from the Bumblebee movie toys, where once again they only had concept art to work off of, but as a whole, Studio Series is a very strong line and has some of my favorite toys in it. Recently, Hasbro decided to start doing toys of the first animated movie, Transformers the movie, which is great if you're like me and love the G1 characters, but if you're a live-action movie fan, it must sting a little bit. Come on, cut these people some slack. They've been through enough. It was even kind of a confusing rollout. It wasn't totally clear which figures were made for the Studio Series 86 subline and the G1 characters from the subsequently running Kingdom toy line. It was a big mess. Anyway, the point is, we're getting leader class Dinobots. Grimlock is one of the most consistently cool and enjoyable characters in all of Transformers. In the G1 cartoon and comics, he got a ton of time to develop as a character, and every version of Transformers has pretty much had some version of Grimlock around. The original G1 Dinobots were built by Wheeljack and Ratchet on Earth. They went to a museum and seeing the dinosaurs, they thought it would be a cool idea to have some robot Autobot Dinobots as backup. Being as Wheeljack doesn't have very good planning, he also decided to give them the brains and general intelligence and nature of an actual dinosaur, so you can imagine how well that turned out. Grimlock was actually a major player in the second half of the movie, and it was the start of a shift in how the Dinobots were going to be portrayed going forward. Where originally they were kind of threatening and a little bit mean, as of the movie forward, they started being a lot more comical and rarely transformed out of their dino modes. I almost feel a little bad for him for getting toned down so much, but as Grimlock himself might say,
"Me Grimlock not feel sorry. Me Grimlock laugh."
Grimlock has had a ton of toys over the years, and it's been a very mixed bag. Some high highs and some very low lows. The ones that try to do this Grimlock tend to have it a little bit harder, masterpiece figure notwithstanding. But the ones that kind of go off and do their own thing tend to fare a little bit. That being said, it wasn't really till this guy until we got a fully satisfying, non-compromised version of a nice big Grimlock. In the main line, that is. Once again, masterpiece notwithstanding. Yeah, he's pretty awesome. There's something to be said about just a nice big toy dinosaur. And a robot dinosaur, no less. Since he was designed in the 80s, Grimlock kind of has that old school dinosaur charm. More of a pseudomation or stop-motion T-Rex. T-Rexes generally used to get portrayed as having a very upright stance and dragging their tails across the ground. You can really tell this was before Jurassic Park changed our entire cultural perception of what T-Rexes looked like. Compare Beast Wars Megatron to G1 Grimlock and you can really see the difference. This is one of those toys where you can just hear the character's voice. Tail to tip, this is G1 Grimlock. Besides this little lower back kibble chunk, which isn't too bad, and some weird stuff like the golden crotch, which are accurate, he just looks really, really good. I always preferred Grimlock having his blue eyes. He looks a lot more friendly and lifelike than the kind of machine-like red of the original G1 toy. Which makes sense since during the movie, Grimlock was more like a big dumb puppy than a vicious dinosaur.
Me Grimlock not puppy. Me Grimlock king.
His arms are really long for a T-Rex, like easily 3 times the size of a real T-Rex's arms. Between that and his very expressive cartoon-like face, he's a lot more lifelike than most toys you might look at. Which is hard to pull off considering he's not alive. His color scheme isn't exactly complicated, but he's got enough going on. Those golds and those red flanks really pop in the field of gray. What a visual delight. I can't say I've ever been a fan of Grimlock's gray tail tip, and he really could have used some of the chrome parts that the G1 toy had, but that wouldn't have really been accurate to the movie, which is the whole point of Studio Series. He's got about as much articulation as could be expected on a mode like this. His neck and head are very expressive, his arms are surprisingly posable, and he even has dedicated knee joints just for this mode. Now that's extra detail. Took me way too long to figure out about these knees, by the way. Grimlock comes packed with a pair of accessories. This really cool double-barreled laser gun, and this horrible little squatting goblin. Wheelie is getting his own toy later, and I get that they didn't know they were going to get to do that, but really they shouldn't have bothered. This feels more like a penalty for buying a great toy than a bonus. His horrible articulation and kind of cheap-feeling plastic just make him a thoroughly unpleasant creature. As Grimlock himself once said,
"Me no like you."
Aside from serving as an unwilling steed to a little snot goblin, the only real gimmick in this mode is that the inside of his mouth has a peg that you can fit fire blasts onto. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, all the Dinobots can breathe fire in their dinosaur mode. I find the bigger fire blasts work a lot better here. With smaller ones, they kind of just look like a choking hazard. That, and with all his 5mm ports, you can load him up with weaponizers and weapons to make him look like one of those cool Dino Rider toys. If you mess with the original G1 Grimlock, the transformation is not dissimilar. You flip the head to his back, fillet his chest to make his wings, flip his crotch up to become his new chest, flip out his fists, fold down his thighs to make these pretty good legs. There's no real surprises in the transformation, but it is very satisfying. The big chunky parts and the way they click and secure into place is very pleasing. Transforming back to Dino mode is much the same, except you have to be a little bit more deliberate with the timing when you fold out the tail tips. Not hard by any means, but not quite as smooth of a process as the robot mode conversion. For a robot mode that literally doesn't even show up for a single second in the movie, they sure went hard. I mean, look at him. He's perfect. I don't even know where to begin. The crotch becoming the chest give him a completely different visual focal point, and the black head, fists, and thighs, not to mention those saucy red Daisy Dukes, switch up the color palette quite a bit. Also, big ups to these little bleep bloop buttons on the legs there. Very nice. Grimlock has one of the all-time great G1 head designs, but it does look a little bit more like a piloted mech than a living robot. I don't know what it is about it. Perhaps it's the visor instead of eyes and the lack of mouth. It's not bad, just something I noticed. The detailing on this mode is so beautiful. Check out the inside of the wings. There's even details in the parts that you literally will not see except during the transformation. That's nice. The head back there clips into place pretty nice and stays securely, so most of the time, I don't even notice it. Those wings and the collar claws, however, are not kibble. Those are an essential part of Grimlock's character design, and they look awesome. I can't really think of any articulation he's lacking. He's got it all. Ankles, wrists, elbows. He even has some really cool red muscly tendons when you lift up his arms. He's a heavy boy, though. Good thing his feet are so massive. Being a big heavy boy, he is sporting a handful of ratchet joints. The ones in his shoulders are just beautiful. I could listen to that all night. His gun is obviously a lot more useful in this mode than in the Dino mode. It's got a cool double-barreled designs, and it fits Fire Blast just fine. The only thing he's lacking, although admittedly he did not use it in the movie, is his awesome red sword. I gladly would have changed that horrible waste goblin wheelie for that wicked sword. The 5mm ports don't work as well in this mode. Without the kind of riding dinosaur element, it just kind of looks like he's wearing armor that's way too small for him. This is probably going to be the definitive G1 Grimlock for years to come. Unless they release a version with some chrome paint and his awesome sword, I really can't see them topping this one. Delightful. Fraz out.